Imagine you're back in high school. Class is in session, you're bored, so you start scribbling in your notebook. Maybe you're drawing little doodles, maybe you're writing notes to pass to your friends. But did you ever consider taking 15 minutes to write a hit song? American singer-songwriter and member of the Crickets, Sonny Curtis, did. Quote, I had a tremendous imagination back in those days. About all I did was dream. I remember the afternoon I sat down and wrote it. Came together in about 15 minutes. Of course, the song's not all that difficult, but I wrote it as a country song first, kind of a Johnny Cash feel. I wish I could think of what I was thinking of. I'd do it again. I used to just kind of write songs for the fun of it, not even thinking that I was a songwriter. That particular time, I hadn't written many songs, and I can't imagine what was on my mind, said Curtis. Although Curtis's song eventually ranked number 175 on the Rolling Stone 500 Greatest Songs of All Time list in 2004, and was named one of the 500 songs that shaped rock and roll by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it was a flop for the Crickets. Perhaps the world simply wasn't ready for a version of the Crickets without the late, great Buddy Holly, but whatever the reason, the B-side for A Sweet Love received little airplay, until it was covered by the Bobby Fuller 4, 5 years after its initial release. For Bobby Fuller and his band, the song was a breakout hit, signifying their move from a beloved Texas act to a national sensation. Fuller passed away 6 months later under mysterious circumstances, but the song lived on, reaching the ears of Joe Strummer and Mick Jones in 1978, while they were working on overdubs for the second studio album for The Clash, Give 'Em Enough Rope. The Crickets' original became their first single released in the States, which solidified their international presence and gave off the impression that this 1960s classic had been their song all along. That's right, we're talking the Crickets' I Fought the Law on Cover Me.
Well, breaking rocks in the hot sun, I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law.
That's right, it's Cover Me, the only podcast that compares famous songs to their many cover versions to find out which one is breaking rocks in the hot sun. I'm your host, as always, The Snake, joined by my lawful co-host,
Alex Mildenberger.
Alex Mildenberger. Oh, how you doing, Alex?
I'm doing good. Doing all right. Just playing Resident Evil 2 and watching the weather turn to fall, pretty much.
Hey, Resident Evil 2, like the remake, right?
Yeah. Yeah, catching up
That's
on
exciting.
games I
we
missed.
originally played that on the N64. Did you have it?
Yeah, on N64.
N64.
We screamed.
We screamed. Have you gotten any of those moments yet? It was the dog that jumps through the interrogation room.
Yeah, in the interrogation room, there's a licker, actually, who jumps through the window in the interrogation room. And I got to that point, and I was like, I know something comes through there. On the way back through the room. Because I remember we were like, something jumps through that glass. And then when you go one way, it's fine. But then on your way back is when it jumps through. So it totally got us.
It's tricky.
But I knew. I was ready.
Stuff.
I was ready this time.
That's good, Alex. Now, this is a dangerous move, but I'm going to read the other topic you brought up was that it is getting downright autumnal out there.
Yeah. Well, slowly. There's a lot of green yet, but, it's turning.
It's turning. Fans of the podcast will remember how we accidentally made an episode 2 hours long by talking about the weather, and specifically the word autumnal, for about 20 minutes. But, it's turning autumn out there.
We're already like an hour behind schedule, so...
I know, we're fucked.
Or, half an hour.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Anyway, the weather's great.
Too much of a peek behind
Wish you were beautiful. How does that one go? The weather is here. Wish you were beautiful. Gotcha, Alex.
Yeah. Okay.
Alex, we're talking about the crickets today.
Yeah, we're talking about crickets. More of a summer insect.
More of a summer insect for sure.
In my mind. But, yeah, they're a really important group, historically speaking, in music and pop music history, particularly because of their affiliation with Buddy Holly.
Yes.
But, it was Buddy Holly and the Crickets, and I guess he went on tour kind of solo or with another band perhaps, and then they were like waiting for him to come back, more or less, so they could do some more recording, and then he died in a plane crash. And then they just did some stuff as the Crickets. And they've actually been recording as the Crickets for like a long time. Or they were.
They were, yeah. They kind of just kept going. Which rarely happens with these kind of groups where the front man is so integral, right?
Yeah, but they just like kept going as the Crickets and also like backed other singers and stuff like for years. So that's kind of a seems like an unusual thing. Like they're a band, but they're not really like their own thing. They really exist to back other artists, which is interesting.
Yeah, they're
I guess
almost
makes sense,
like
but you don't
different
hear
version
about
of the
them
Wrecking Crew.
having a name. Yeah, I guess so.
And it is funny because you like look up, you're like, what's the big deal with the Crickets? Like they popularized the idea of a guitar, bass, and drums as a band.
Yeah, and like the fact that they were named after an insect supposedly also influenced the Beatles to pick a similar name.
Seems pretty clear there, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's another anecdote where they almost called themselves the Beatles, but they picked Crickets instead. So.
Well, what could have been? We can only imagine. Yeah. Alex, what Cricket songs do you know besides I Fought the Law?
Well, some of their stuff with Buddy Holly, right? Like Peggy Sue. What is it? That'll be the day when I die. All that. Like, some of that. I'm not a huge Buddy Holly head, but I know some of it. I think I have one of his albums on vinyl. So, throw that on every once in a while. It's catchy stuff.
The Buddy Holly jams. Yeah, he's no, I really don't know a lot of his stuff. He's pretty foundational though, so almost the Shakespeare of rock and roll, in that if you hear his shit, you're like, this is pretty cliched, but it's because he invented it.
Yeah, he came up with a lot of stuff. To
an extent.
I think. Or at least popularized things.
Came up with a lot of stuff, I think. He popularized things.
But yeah, I don't know about him compared to like Elvis or something. I haven't heard as much about Buddy Holly. You know?
No, surely not. We haven't had a Buddy Holly biopic.
Not that I've seen. Anyway.
Not that I've seen.
But we're also talking about the Crickets because Jerry Allison passed away recently.
That's right. Passed away at age of 82.
Yeah, which, actually, if you look at the like Crickets timeline, he's the only member who is solid the entire time.
Like the whole way
on the
through?
Wikipedia page. His is a solid orange drum line. On the timeline, and that's pretty cool.
That is my favorite kind of band, the Crickets and Pink Floyd, where the drummer is just there as things just fucking shift around him.
Yeah, and like can just stay in the band because he doesn't like piss other members off too much. And is also
in the back.
Good at what they do, but you know, like isn't so much of like a hothead or whatever that they get in these fights.
Yeah, they're like, I'm here to lay down a rhythm, fellas. Whatever you want to do, let's do it.
I will give you the beat. So that's pretty cool. He co-wrote Peggy Sue and That'll Be the Day. But yeah, it was a really consistent member of that band.
Yeah.
Up until...
And so this was written by a later edition. One of the people actually brought in to fill in the Buddy Holly void, Sonny Curtis. Who's doing the guitar parts. Yeah. And then you had, it's Earl Sinks, rather, doing the vocals on this track.
Right.
So Buddy Holly has the distinct recognition of being one of those artists who you need two different people to fill their role.
To fill the role, yeah. Similar to Lindsey Buckingham.
Yeah, which is even more gnarly because it's not just two like different people, it's two different guitarists.
Yeah, and like good ones too. Like recognizable names. Not just random guys.
Big stuff.
But yeah, this happened way back in, when was this? Like the late 50s probably, because this came out in 1960.
So it was recorded in 1958, 1959. So it was like really like right after Buddy Holly died.
Yeah. And it was, and like you said, it wasn't really a success at the time. But now it
wasn't
part of like our musical vocabulary, and it's like a very important early rock and roll song.
Early rock and roll song that I was shocked when you told me it was not by The Clash.
Yeah, that's definitely like one of the big cover for us now is that.
Yeah. But
originally it was the Bobby Fuller 4, so.
Mm-hmm. This song has such a simplicity to it. Like Sonny Curtis said, that it plays in so well to almost any like of the people music. So like rock in the 60s, country, punk when you move into the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, it fits in with like folk styles because it really is the story of going up against authority.
Yeah.
In like a very simple way, and like needing to provide for yourself, kind of.
Yeah, it's actually like, I mean, it's a 15-year-old who wrote this, but there's some pretty key lines that really lay out how like not well off this narrator is. Which is a great segue. Thank you. I know, into the lyrics.
Yeah.
Which begins as this. It says, "A breaking rocks in the hot sun. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won." So we get to see where he ends up right at the beginning, right? Classic storytelling. We see the end first.
Right. We start in the chain gang.
That's right.
Breaking rocks. I don't know what the purpose of breaking rocks would have been. Was it for like concrete or something? Because that's like the stereotype. They're like, oh, we got our pickaxes or whatever, and we're breaking rocks. But like, they're not just making them do that as punishment, right? Like, they're not just breaking the rocks to break the rocks. It's for something, right? Yeah,
because typically in America, I'm not sure if it happens everywhere. Probably happens in Canada or something. But the abuse of prison labor for the capitalist system is a given.
Sure.
As you pay these guys pennies. So yeah, it must be for concrete or something. Because it's not like the digging ditches of, who was that, FDR? Who was like, well, listen, brother, every day you go out there, you dig a hole, and then you fill that hole, we'll give you...
Like a make-work project. Just to like distribute income, wealth kind of thing.
Yeah, this was more like, it's pretending to be rehabilitation, but it's ultimately just free labor or dirt cheap labor.
Yeah.
So we see what happens to this guy, we get, and like again, simple. A breaking rocks in the hot sun. I fought the law and the law won. We immediately know where he is and how he got there.
Yeah. And also, like, that's I mean, you could call it a verse, I guess. It's really a single line followed by a refrain. And that's kind of how this works. I mean, I did split it into A sections and B sections. But, like, that's what the A section would be. And then the refrain is repeated twice. So it's a lot of it is just the line, I fought the law and the law won.
The law won. Yeah, it's at least 66% of the song.
Yeah. So it's, huge.
Huge, yeah. So the next stanza, or the next A-B combination here is, I miss my baby in good fun. I fought the law and the law won.
Yeah, because you got to rhyme with one. So
you got to rhyme with one.
They all do.
They all do. And this, we say he misses freedom, basically, and his girlfriend.
Yeah, that's not my favorite line. I miss my baby in good fun. I don't know why.
And good fun.
It's kind of awkward.
It's kind of just like, I mean, it tells us a little more. It tells us he had a relationship.
True, he's got people on the outside.
But we also get that in the chorus. You call this section
I called it a B section, but it more or less functions as a chorus.
Yeah,
because it is.
So we kind of get that repeated in this B section or your chorus, which is, I've left my baby and it feels so bad. Guess my race is run. She's the best girl that I ever had. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.
So that's his. I mean, he's stuck in prison, right? Like.
Yeah, guess my race is run. I've run out of road. I cannot be on the run anymore. Like as a criminal, he can't be on the run, and also life wise, he's basically hit the end. He's in jail.
Yeah, and he's like realizing what he had, kind of thing. His best girl.
He's like, well, I did have a really good. It's my best girl. So yeah, now we figure out how he got into prison.
Right.
Robbing people with a zip gun. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.
Yeah, so this is where it kind of, I mean, it's already somewhat, like, I don't want to say cinematic exactly, but it's got some of those tropes, right? Especially nowadays, I don't really think of, like, actual chain gangs working on rocks somewhere, which, I mean, I think it was real, but it feels more like something you'd see in a movie. And I don't know about in the 50s, if that's true.
Yeah, everybody chained up and...
But it kind of feels like a Western, especially when we start talking about the gun, right? He's like just robbing people.
Yeah,
on
well,
the highway.
the gun gets altered.
The gun does get altered to be
I think
even
he's
more
robbing
cowboy-like.
people. Yeah, well, I think what it is in this version is actually poverty-like. It's a zip gun, which is an improvised firearm.
Improvised.
So it's like sometimes it has an elastic band as a trigger. I read the Wikipedia entry, and it's like honestly as much a danger to the user as whoever it's being pointed at.
Yeah, I mean the only other time I've
So
heard a
he's
reference
kinda
to a
robbing
zip gun
people.
is like Boland's Zip Gun. I think the album T-Rex album.
Yeah, Bull and Zip Gun, the T-Rex album. So it's like he doesn't even have money for a gun. He had to basically make a fake one and
he
hope
makeshifted
that people will give him money. Yeah, and not call his bluff, because if he has to shoot somebody, it's anybody's game at that point.
Yeah, risky. But he needed
Risky.
money. I needed money because I had none. That's the next. It rhymes with one line.
I fought the law and the law won.
And
So yeah, he's poor. If you didn't get that from the zip gun, you got it from him telling you.
yeah, and like that's it, man. There's a chorus kind of, and there's a refrain that they play after
Yeah.
everything. Plays after the. So I guess chorus, which I was calling the B section. Every section gets a refrain after it. I fought the law and the law won. So it's a ton of that, and then every A section or perhaps verse is a single line.
Yeah.
So it's like 4 lines plus a chorus and a refrain, basically.
Yeah, that is it's very simple.
Very simple, but it kind of tells a story.
It tells a story, and it's a story that, like, beyond maybe the zip gun, because it's easier to get your hands on firearms these days.
Yeah.
Like, still, and the idea of chain gangs, I suppose, is still pretty relevant today. Even just that I needed money because I had none.
Yeah,
It's
the
like,
imagery, though, of a chain gang, I think, is still present.
hey, yeah, I think that still lives on.
If
in
they
our
really
brains.
do exist, I haven't seen them.
I haven't seen them around. I'm never driving down the highway and there's a chain gang.
Yeah.
doing
Maybe it's more
chain
common
gang
in the
things.
States, or I don't know if it's dated or just foreign, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, or both.
Or both. Like, there's your lyrics, man. That's your story.
There's your lyrics. That's your story. 15 minutes from I'm going to guess a 15-year-old who's in high school.
Yeah. And plus, like, I mean, this is like early rock and roll. There's like some rebellion to it, right?
Yeah.
But like
I fought
being,
the law.
because yeah, you're fighting the law. But at the same time, it's not like there's sympathy, because he's doing it out of necessity.
Yeah, he's not he's even got a girlfriend, right? We do things to make him sympathetic. It's like he's not some...
Yeah, like he's trying to provide for someone or whatever.
Or, yeah, he's like just trying to have a good life.
Yeah.
He's gone to a life of crime. And then it's also the presentation in the music is a pretty soft delivery of it. It's not like this fucking like deep, moody, like I fought the law.
It's not a lament.
That gives us the impression. Yeah, it's not a lament. It's in fact almost like sing-songy.
Yeah, there's some like youthfulness to it in terms of the music.
Which is also backed by that repetition of I fought the law and the law won. That's almost a children's song. It's like, we say a thing, here's the refrain,
Yeah.
I fought the law and the law
Yeah,
won.
because it does have that kind of feel to it. Yeah, which I guess is another reason why it fits in with like folk styles so well.
Yeah, very easy to pick up on. And I'm pretty sure every version of this, the title line, the refrain, always has multiple vocal tracks. It's always multiple people singing. Mm-hmm. So it is built.
Maybe not the original. What did you?
Maybe not the original. Let me see. I might. I always say something like, I'm like, every version. You're like, actually, except this one. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should have paid.
But possibly only because, and maybe this is a good time to transition into talking about the instrumentation and recording.
I think it's a great time.
It's really old style. Like this was done in the late 50s, so it's probably maybe 2 tracks kind of thing. Like
Yeah,
the drums
you might be right there, Alex.
sound like they're being recorded from across the room.
Yeah, it's like being recorded from another studio.
Yeah. So it's very old school, and there's like I don't think you could handle more than one vocalist. unless you're really kind of harmonizing or something.
That's true. You're right. It is just solo vocals on this one, but every other version, Bobby Fuller 4 onwards, chucks in the group singing element.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. This is like the most bare bones, like pushing the limits of 1958, 59 recording technology version.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the drums sound like shit. The bass is basically just root notes. And the guitar is there putting down what is recognizable as the
it's a pretty iconic
real
riff.
musical signature. Yeah.
Right from the start, which doesn't always happen with these versions that have more popular versions right after them. You know, they don't always have their really iconic elements right away, but it does have that riff, and everyone else plays that riff.
That's right.
Or something very close to it. But yeah, this one has that riff. It's on this, very jangly guitar, which was kind of the style then. And nowadays, if we throw back to that, we generally call it jangle pop.
Yes, we do.
But that's kind of what's being played on there. I don't know that it's a Rickenbacker, but that's often associated with the jangly sound.
I'm going to call it a Rickenbacker. See if anybody proves us wrong.
Which I think was fairly common in particular. I mean, they're also from like Texas, so I would expect them to have that kind of rockabilly thing going on.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
The drums, though. The drum pattern on this, it's kind of got that ba-ba, ba, ba-ba, ba, rhythm going on, which you'd clap, right? Like that's a big clapping rhythm to me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there it is.
There it is.
Somewhere clapping on the other side of the room.
Somewhere far away. The other big drum thing to note that is also mimicked in, I'm pretty sure, every version is the hits on the zip gun line.
Yeah, most versions have some form of that.
Yeah.
Where they like change it, and I don't know exactly what they're doing. I couldn't quite work it out in terms of the actual meter, but it really like emphasizes the part where he says zip gun. And maybe that's on purpose to be like, gun, think about guns, and just like make it a little more rebellious.
Yeah, and get that kind of explosive pop going on. Dum, 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 dum.
Because that's kind of that's the description of a crime that's in this song, right?
Yes.
The rest of it's just talking about the idea of fighting the law. But that's the one where he's like, I had a gun, I robbed people.
What he did.
So I feel like that line is important for that reason. And the drums emphasize it.
Yeah.
What else is going? So the way the guitar strums, let me see if I can. It kind of plays. Is this the one? Let me just double check here. It's strumming fairly fast. Like I'm thinking about in the A sections. Because it kind of plays just like ding 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 ding. It like turns down and then just like strums fairly quickly. Because it sounds like it's playing like maybe like 5 strums in a beat, which is like quite a bit.
Yeah, it is very quick, and it gets kind of like simplified when we move to the Bobby Fuller 4 version. And so that first half of it, that simplified is just like it's pretty much Blitzkrieg Bop.
It does sound like Blitzkrieg Bop later on. But yeah, they're really doing some strumming there. And then they play the riff after. So they play that, and then at the between sections they just play the riff.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like a loose instrumental jam, but yeah, it is pretty much just the riff.
Bam, 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 bam. When they do that bit. Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
And like that's what I've got for this song. It's all very simple.
Yeah, that's the pieces.
These old rock and roll songs, I mean, are all very simple, and that's a big part of them. And it's a big part of, I think, what like punk later tried to recreate. For certainly in like the early days, was like this simplicity.
Yeah, bring it back to this. Lay out what you're gonna say, play it hard, and then get the fuck out.
Yeah, because there's not really much of a build, if any. I didn't notice any in this song. Like, they come out at, I mean, I wouldn't say they come out at like 10, but they come out at the same level that they leave at, you know?
Yeah, they come out at a solid 7.
Yeah.
They're like, hey.
And maybe that's
We
just
got
our
the
standards.
energy.
Maybe in 1960.
Yeah, maybe that was like mind-blowing.
Not
hair
mind-blowing
blowing
enough
back.
to make this a successful single, though.
No, and I think really the big difference as we're going to move into the Bobby Fuller 4 in 1965.
Breaking rocks in the hot sun. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.
The big difference is just fullness, like fullness of sound here.
Yeah, I guess especially
This
like
version
for
is
us,
just
we can definitely
bigger.
notice that.
The drums sound 1,000 times better, just like audio quality wise, and they rip in with a drum roll.
Yeah, that gets even like I don't want to talk about the future versions too much, but like there's drum rolls later on, and the Clash version has a drum roll that seems adapted from this, but it's not quite exactly
Absolutely.
the same. But like it's this idea of coming in with that drum roll.
Yeah, exactly. That like it changes up the energy immediately. We're at a higher note, and we're ready to fucking go
Yeah.
here. Now, before we tuck in too deep into
Yeah.
this instrumentation,
Talk
Alex,
about-
I do want to briefly
with the
talk
band a
about
bit.
the death of Bobby Fuller.
Yeah, it was mysterious.
Yeah, so he died from asphyxiation 6 months after the release of this song in his mom's car in an LA parking
And he was
lot.
23.
It was ruled a suicide. He was 23. But apparently there was a lot of like bungling of the police investigation, a lot of like weird stuff going on. So some people think it was a murder. And we're now becoming a true crime podcast.
Well, I think I did see that it was up, like the cause of death was updated within the last 20 years to accident.
Accident.
Because
so
I
not
mean,
a suicide.
he
Yeah, 'cause-
asphyxiated in a vehicle, which is kind of a tragic way to go, but also possible to do it, especially in the 60s because cars weren't as good.
That's true, right?
Accidentally. I don't know who would, like, I don't know his story, so I don't know if there was like crime people who would have killed him.
Yeah.
Where's
Or if it was
the
'cause-
motive?
It's the law, baby. He released a popular version of I Fought the Law and the Law
And
won.
the law
got
was like,
mad.
no.
And it came down on him.
Except that, I mean, the law wins in that story. Anyway.
Yeah, well.
But that's yeah. There's some mystery.
That's
There's
really
some
all there is
mystery
to say
around
about that. There is a mystery.
Bobby, interesting. Apparently, they were like kind of starting to break out, and then obviously were interrupted early on. Another interesting thing that I read about them is they were considered a bit of a throwback group to like pre-Beatles rock and roll.
Okay.
Which is weird in 1960. I don't know if this came out in 64 or 66 because I think they recorded it twice. I think this is
There's actually a stereo version and a mono version which have different vocals and guitar tracks. I
Okay,
believe.
I think this might be the 66 version because that was the popular one, as far as I can tell.
Okay. I put 65 as the release date, so maybe I just split the difference.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe it was 65. Sometimes there's like a lot, like, you know, multiple dates for release, and sometimes you see one, sometimes you see another one. In any case,
Yeah,
it
and
was
like,
around
we're
the
gonna talk
same
about the
time.
Clash later, who has similar weirdo
Yeah.
release things. But that's more about international borders than anything else.
Yeah. But this is the Bobby Fuller 4. This is some
Bobby
apparently
Fuller 4.
throwback rock, but throwback to like 4 years before.
Yeah,
Yeah, this was like early
what do they know
Beatles.
about
Anyway,
throwbacks?
or era. But there's some Beatles influence here, I think, as well, because I mean, the Beatles were quite known for their harmonies, I think, at the time. I don't know how common the harmonies were, but they definitely bring in the harmonies on this one in the A sections.
Yeah. I will say that vocally, Bobby Fuller sounds like he's from 55. Like he sounds like 10 years ago.
Doesn't sound 23, does he?
No.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, looking at the recording, I mean, everyone looked older back then. Maybe it's just the fashion, but
That's right.
like
They all
there's
look
a
like the
live
cast of
version of
Grease,
this. I'm like, that
basically.
dude's 23. Oh well, it's low res.
No fucking way.
Yeah, I know.
Breaking rocks in the hot sun. He sounds like an old man. He's so I can see that being a bit of a throwback.
Okay, this is the one where you can identify those bum ba bum ba bum ba bum 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 bum, like it sounds like they're strumming quite quickly, and then it chills out later on.
Yeah.
But it's like it's pretty similar, right? Like ultimately,
Yes.
it's updated for sure. They add those harmonies, and those harmonies are a big deal. And the bass also gets more play, like in the B section particularly. You really like it plays eighth
Yeah,
notes.
kind of walks.
But yeah, then it actually like plays a bass line
Mhm.
versus well, I mean it's always a bass line, but versus just like kind of eighth notes of just the root.
Yeah, the very simplistic like root, maybe fifth thrown in there.
Like that, like a bass line.
Yeah, classic bass boogie going on there.
Yeah, so it's just a little more active. The other thing they do is they play around with the hi-hat a bit, possibly just because like, well, the drums are kind of completely different, although they're just a pretty straight rock beat, which the original had a bit of.
Yeah.
But, it was the ba ba ba, like I said before. But this is straighter, but it's also playing around with the hi-hat a bit. So like they seem to be like opening it to hit it and then muting it. And then there's some points where they let it ring out longer, and that happens in the B sections.
Yeah.
So there's like little touches and stuff.
Important little touches. Another one of which is lyrically the change of a zip gun to a six gun, as in a six shooter.
Six gun, six shooter.
It's a revolver.
They also shift some of the lyrics around. So they switch the good fun line with the I needed money because I had none. So that comes in earlier on, which narratively maybe makes a little less sense. But I don't love the other line, so I feel like burying it also does make sense. But it's also the version I'm familiar with because the Clash do that too. So
because the Clash do this version, yeah. So they have that change, and like you were talking about in the original, it really brings forward that cowboy imagery because now he's got a six shooter.
Yes,
And so
really
now
feels
like
cowboyish.
America loves cowboys, so
yeah, and like if you look at the live version, which is like in black and white, low resolution on YouTube, it's actually decent sound quality, but you could probably just overlay the recording. There's like women in cowboy outfits dancing, so they're definitely using that cowboy thing.
right.
Do they have fake guns? Yeah, they have fake guns. Hard to tell because it's low res, but
Of course. That's it for this. And some hand claps in there, so you get a bit of that group element via hand clapping moments.
yeah, it really like mostly feels like an update. It has advancements from this is a time when music recording technology was advancing at a rapid pace, and it had a long way to go in the next 5 years, but it had also come a long way in the last 5 years. So
yeah, just
like
being
right
able
in
to
the
capture
middle.
those drums is like a
Yeah, like
huge
multi-track
advancement.
recording. Oh, wow.
Phenomenal.
So it's just kind of a more exciting version, ultimately.
Yeah.
They just punched it up a bit because they had the technology to do that, and it gets captured here. So I don't know. It's hard to say much about the Bobby Fuller 4 because there weren't really much of a thing because they ended so suddenly. So I don't know if it's like they were just geniuses or they just recorded a decent song with better stuff. But
geniuses or just good timing. Hard to say.
But it worked, and this was a hit for them, and it led to this becoming an even bigger hit later.
Yes, in the year 1979, or hang on, let me try that again. 1979 with the Clash.
Breaking rocks in a hot sun. I fought the law in a law one. I fought the law in a law one. I needed money, God, I had none. I fought the law in a
Yeah, this is, there were more versions between these. I saw, there's a Roy Orbison one I wanted to put on.
Yeah, I listened to that one.
Yeah, sounds like Roy Orbison singing this song.
It does. It sounds like Roy Orbison, and his son's playing drums on that, I think. Alex Orbison.
You know, I looked
Or
up Roy
Orby, as they
Orbison
call
because
him.
of that, and he like was not that old. I thought he was old when he died, but he wasn't.
He's got
He was
old
like
man
in his
voice.
50s or something.
Crazy.
But anyway, The Clash.
Yeah. Anyway,
This is the
indeed,
big
Alex. The Clash. So they catch this song by chance. I think this is very interesting.
yeah,
So Mick Jones and Joe Strummer go to San Francisco to record at the Automat studio. And the guy who owns the Automat, which sounds like some kind of laundromat, but is not. In fact, it is a studio, has like his jukebox collection kind of spread out within the studio. Like I guess there's jukeboxes everywhere or whatever. And they catch this Bobby Fuller version of I Fought the Law. And that leads to them recording this version. They put it on an EP in 1979, The Cost of Living, which is then released on their eponymous album in America. So The Clash has like a weird kind of like two different veins of discography depending on whether you were born in the UK or in America.
right. Because it was like essentially a bonus track, but you don't listen to the bonus track. It's like when we were talking about the Beatles. Did we talk about that? No. The
We talked
Beatles
about
had,
the Beatles.
a lot of differences between their UK
Right,
and
like it would be
American.
the same album and have
Yeah.
different tracks on it.
Yeah, or just be a different album.
Or just be with the same
Yeah.
name. It's almost like Final Fantasy 3 for, for you fucking
yeah.
nerds out there,
Yeah, it's
which was Final
kind of
Fantasy
a Final
6 in
Fantasy
the States.
situation. And like there's Beatles albums, like there's that one where they had a bunch of like baby doll parts and like fake blood. Like that's like you don't see
Right.
that. I think that was one of the American ones.
Yeah.
But we generally refer to the British releases as the sort of canon ones these days. But anyway,
Yeah, the canonical releases.
not all bands have that canonical decision, so they kind of have separate versions. But
Yeah, they have
yes,
these kind of
this
separate.
was released in a few different places. I obviously just heard it on the radio because it's a radio hit.
Yeah, this is like the definitive version pretty much of the
Yeah.
song.
And this is also, like
used-
this was what 1979. This was like London Calling era, So like this
Yeah.
is prime Clash.
Yeah, this is the Clash at their clashiest.
Yeah, and they've already we know they definitely have this sort of classic rock and roll penchant. Obviously, it's more obvious to us now. In the future, like we can look at London Calling and say, that's a reference to an Elvis album artwork. They
Right.
also have a cover of Brand New Cadillac, which is an older Vince Taylor song. Like we know they're into this kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're real American
Yeah.
files, the Clash.
Taylor, I don't think he was American, but
Is he not? Oh, shit. I just assumed since it was a song about a car.
sounds like it,
Seems very
right?
American to me. Yeah.
But yeah,
But if nothing else, they're old rock and roll
yeah,
files,
the old rock and roll, wherever it's from.
wherever it's from. Worth noting, this song was also used to aid in deposing the former military leader of Panama, Manuel Antonio Noriega, along with, I want to say Running with the Devil by Van Halen. It might have been another song, but they would play these songs on repeat outside of his encampment or building or whatever he was in to try to wear down his spirit.
Well, this song is pretty repetitive, so I wouldn't
Yes.
be surprised. When would this have been? Do you know?
Let me see. I should have put a date on that because I know I've
Would have
heard
had to have been
of
in,
that.
If Van Halen was involved.
Van Halen. I'm thinking like the 80s, maybe.
Yeah, it had to. I mean, I guess. It had to be the 80s.
1989 was the end of his reign, so I'm imagining around 1980.
Yeah, the time leading up to that. All right. Anyway, okay. So this version, this one's really exciting. Like they come out very explosively. We talk
Yes.
about how the Bobby Fuller 4 version had like a drum roll. This is that, but we just keep it going. It's not like like it's like it's continuous drum roll and then hit the cymbal kind of thing at the end. Ba 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 ba.
Hit the cymbal, yeah, and then the guitar comes screaming in.
Yes, the guitar, like it's just kind of going between notes, and distorted as well, obviously. So that's kind of their new intro, which is based on the previous stuff, but it is new, and that's our real energetic introduction to this song, and it kind of stays there, right? Well, more or less. It cuts down a bit when it starts singing, right? Just to get things out of the way for the vocals.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still
in those vocals,
it's still exciting. The energy is not necessarily gone.
Big hits. We've sacrificed speed maybe in the verse, but we're pushing those notes. We're putting energy in all these big hits. Even the guitars are doing little stings. Like it's meant to hit with force, and it does.
They also audibly have two guitars playing, which is, like we said, recording technology came a long way. And I think even the Bobby Fuller 4 did, because if you look at the live version, they have it's a Beatles setup basically, but you can hardly.
Well, you got four guys there. You got to have two guitars.
Yeah, but this is real exciting. What else do we got? So in the A section, the guitars. There's more guitar involvement. Like you can really hear that guitar playing those those two chord hits. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong one. The Clash. Nope, this is it.
The Clash. No, yeah, you got those two stings, and the drums are like classic punk faction, really tom focused. So you get really heavy, meaty drums rather than your typical like rock 4/4 shit going on.
Yeah. What else is going on here?
And you got
B-sections? Sorry.
Yeah. Tell me about the B section.
Okay. The guitars changes up a bit, kind of just jump between two notes. They're just like quarter notes.
Yeah, and big sustains.
Yeah.
Bing, woo, wee, woo.
Which is like a slow siren.
Yes, I was just going to say, is it meant to imitate
when you
a
said
siren?
it that way, I thought of a siren. I don't know if it's meant to be that.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like that, but it's very slow.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And then after that B section, we get like a sort of rising instrumental bridge. It kind of almost completes that siren phrase. It goes, and
then into a solo, right? We haven't talked about the solo much.
Because on most of them, it's kind of just an extension of the riff.
I guess so. Because, in the original, it was a lot of like fast drumming and playing. And I think Bobby Fuller 4 just copied that directly. But this is where we get a different riff. And, it's always hard with these like really popular, iconic ones. So I'm like, this is a great solo.
It's the thing.
I'm like, because I've been listening to it since I was 9 or whatever.
But I think it succeeds.
It has that
keeping the energy there.
It's kind of similar. It's kind of like. Actually, it is also very similar to the other solo in some ways, but they kind of like let the sustain carry it instead of strumming quickly.
Yeah, and they punctuate the energy with just short drum rounds. It's like ba-da-da, ba-da-da. So it's a different way of having like an exciting solo. And of course, in true punk rock fashion, it doesn't eat up too much time. It comes in, it says, here's a cool idea. You say, I like that. They say, fuck you. Here's a different thing now. We're back to the verses.
Yeah. So, and this one is a bit longer than the previous versions, but that's mostly because of the outro, which we'll get to.
Yes.
That's a solo. So the only other thing I haven't mentioned is that they keep the Sticks Gun lyric over Sticks Gun. And they really punch that line. Like they keep in the drum thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they also, like the way they say it, I thought was very, like he's really enunciates Six Gun.
Yes, Six Gun.
I fought the love. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I think the punk rock vocals in general, both on lead Joe Strummer there and with the backing. I mean, we talk a lot about punk rock sort of not quite in tune backing vocals.
Yeah.
But it really gives this song that folk, like, It's not just any one man's story, it's everybody's story of fighting the law and losing. Like, it really punches that angle, and I think really brings the song to life. Like, there's a reason this song hits so well from The Clash, and I think it is the punk rock, like, mythos behind it.
Yeah, and though I mean the vocal delivery itself is very nice. I mean, I mentioned the 6-gun line already, but when he says I needed money, God, I had none, he's just like, God, I had none, and it's like, it's
a bit of like almost
I
theater
believe
to it.
You needed money.
Yes. It's so crazy, but it feels like this song was made for The Clash.
Yeah, I mean, as always, it's like, probably because it was the first one I ever heard, and it's the one I've heard the most, but it just feels so natural coming out of it.
It feels natural. Yeah. And another way, it is also just made for punk rock, because is there anything else to say about this one, Alex?
Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot.
No. Yeah, I think that's
good stuff. But we move into the Dead Kennedys in 1986. There is a music video,
but it's not.
Oh, that's
exciting.
Right. Let's pull back.
Yeah.
It's not all that interesting, but it is more than just live performance. It has it'll cut to lyrics on just a big screen, so it'll just be like, I fought the law.
Yeah, a lot of it is live performance. I think there's even shots from we talked about London Calling. I think there's shots from what becomes that video, because it looks like they're performing on a pier kind of thing, but it might just be the lighting.
Okay, yeah.
Like, if you go right to
a lot of them
1 minute,
performing on this space with a lot of flags on it. One what, sorry?
1 minute in to the video?
Okay, 1 minute in.
Is that just from the London Calling
I see the
music
shots
video?
you're talking about.
That's what it looks like.
It looks near identical. Yeah, that might be it.
Which would have been... I don't know when this video was made, so... But anyway, it's like Clash footage. I think they're dressed a little differently, but they look very similar. Anyway, it feels like Clash archival footage they threw together with some other stuff.
Yeah, and they put some effects on things. So they do like these kind of like...
There's some like video effects.
Where like there's an after image, there's a bit of that going on.
Yeah.
And there is shots of people fighting the law. They're stealing from places.
Yeah. Some footage of like petty crime, some of which I think is literally just loitering. Or there might have been some graffiti. There's some police violence. And then near the end, they kind of get into like war fighting. Like there's combat shown briefly.
Yeah, you see shots of like missile launching programs too.
Yeah, and like what looks like I wonder if this is a Chips reference. Like I'm at 225, and there's like, or like right before they're like 220, and it shows I fought the law, and then it shows guys on motorcycles, and then Clash goes by. When did Chips air?
I fought the law. That's a good question.
77? Yeah, 77 to 83. So it would have been on TV at the time. So I feel like that might be a Chips reference.
Would have been on TV. Okay.
Chips. Intro. Well, maybe not directly, but
maybe not.
It might be. I mean,
similar
Chips,
lines of thinking. I don't know.
What? California Highway Patrol?
California Highway Patrol system. Stewards. I don't fucking know. I don't know what the S is for.
Maybe it's a reference to
Patrols. It might just be an S.
Anyway, so it feels like they're kind of gesturing towards like being topical, but not really being very specific about it.
Yeah.
And the song's not really very specific. But it's like, hey, sometimes crime. And also the law isn't
the themes
always
are evergreen. Nice. Yeah, the law is not as kind
it
as
works.
they would have you believe.
But there's not much to this video, I don't think.
No, it's not groundbreaking, but it is a little more than just live footage. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's really like infant days of music video where you're like, okay.
True, it was 79, so we were
79,
just starting to get into that music video era.
Yeah, most music videos at this point in time were by the Beatles, and it was just like promo shit. Like it,
yeah, from
so
like 12
it is
years earlier.
Exactly. So we're not quite at the peak like 80s medium where there's storytelling and big choreographed dances and all that, but
yeah,
it's something. Now, we do move into 1986 to talk about the dead Kennedys.
Drinking beer in the hot sun. I fought the law and I won. I fought the law and I won. I needed sex and I got mine.
Who really take this song and punch the political angle of punk rock.
Oh yeah, this is a quite different song, but also a very, very specific song.
Yeah, they're hitting at a very topical issue.
Yeah.
And they flip the whole song to be about this fucking guy. What's his name? San Francisco city politician Dan White.
Yeah, Dan White, who shot and killed George Moscone and Harvey Milk in 1978.
Harvey Milk. 1978.
This came out shortly after he was released from prison. I don't know if it was before or after his suicide.
Yeah, I can't say for sure. I would say given the positive perspective on him, or like not positive, but like it's kind of from his point of view.
Yeah.
And him winning. So I would imagine it was pre-suicide.
Late 85 is when he died. Anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, this came out in 86 is the
so
date I had.
This version of the song is very much them saying he got off light because he had political connections.
Yes, absolutely. When you read into some of the details in the case, which they reference here, the diminished responsibility defense and what is known as the Twinkies defense.
Right.
Yeah, it's insane.
He claimed that he ate Twinkies.
But we're actually going to have to... he claims that his diet depressed him because he started eating too many Twinkies, and so it altered his mind, basically, and so he cannot be held responsible for his murder because it was essentially it was in the hands of Twinkies and not him.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's an insane thing to say,
Insane.
Right? That's crazy.
That's an insane thing to say.
But
But
a lot of the lyrics are changed.
yes, so we're gonna go through them.
Yep.
Drinking beer in the hot sun, I fought the law and I won. I fought the law and I won. I needed sex and I got mine. I fought the law and I won. I fought the law and I won. So he's celebrating his victory. He's drinking a beer in the hot sun. That's a great day.
Yeah, because, I mean, he fought, like, they've changed the fundamental part of the song of the law winning, but the law did not win here. He won.
Mm-hmm.
Or perhaps justice did not win. But either way, this person,
Yes.
this criminal, got off, in their opinion, lightly.
Yes. I needed sex and I got mine. Somebody genius here has suggested him getting his is him fucking the law, which I think is quite a. I think that's good. I don't think him fucking the law is good. I think the poetry of that line, if that's the read, is pretty good.
Yeah, I think that fits in with the sort of aggressive punk rock thing going on here.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you want to talk about getting off easy. The law don't mean shit if you've got the right friends.
Yeah.
That's how this country is run. Twinkies
Yeah.
are the best friend I've ever had. I fought the law and I won.
Yeah, so that's, I mean,
won.
it's, like I said, very specific. The Twinkies thing is very much, I mean, obviously a reference to this Twinkies defense, right? Which I wasn't aware of before looking into this.
Yeah.
In fact, I didn't even pick up on, like, the changed lyrics until the next part, which is they slow it all down, and then he shouts, "I blew George and Harvey's brains out."
With my six
And I was
gun.
like, who are George and Harvey? But yeah, so that's
Yeah,
why I
what
Googled it
is
in the
this?
first place.
Is this some sort of cowboy movie reference?
Yeah.
Like,
I thought,
no,
I
it's
thought maybe
a
they were like
reference to a
gangsters or
political
something.
murder.
You know? Thought they'd be like
Mm-hmm.
old timey gangsters. But no, they are politicians.
Yes.
With my 6-gun, so they keep the 6-gun.
Mm-hmm.
And then gonna write my book and make a million.
Million.
thought the
Good
law
rhymes
I
on
won.
this. Good rhymes.
Yeah. But this is definitely that, like, I mean, I don't know exactly if there's a word to describe it, but, like, there are a lot of punk rock bands where the sort of idea is we just there's no hiding behind poetry, really. Like, you just say the thing you want to say, and that is admirable. But the
Sorry,
Dead
you cut out
Kennedys
there, no
definitely
hiding
have
what?
that, and they have that here. Like, they're not holding back,
Right.
or at least not much.
Yeah, it's very clear who the target is here, and it's very clear that we hate them.
Yeah, like they're using real names, real references, and then the next line, "I'm the new folk hero of the Ku Klux Klan. My cop friends think that's fine. You can get away with murder if you've got a badge. I fought the law and I won. I fought the law and I won. I fought the law and I won. I am the law, so I won."
So I won.
Yeah, so like it's all there.
Yeah. It's all there. Black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose.
Yeah.
Good
and
day,
even,
sir. No, but it.
I mean, even some lines, like things that we still say, it's like, you're not a member of a white supremacist group, but a lot of white supremacists seem to like what you're doing. Like, that's awfully suspicious, right?
Yeah.
Like, that kind of stuff
That
has been
whole
coming up for
last-
decades. It's a reminder
For
that
decades.
things haven't changed that much.
That much. You can get away with murder if you've got a badge. Is pretty much an evergreen line,
Yep.
unfortunately.
Yep.
Yeah, this one hits. It's specific to that time, and it has stuff that unfortunately still hits in the year of our Lord, 2022.
Yeah, even if you don't know who George and Harvey are off the top of your head, which I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, yeah, once you, especially, the change of I to, from the law one to I one.
I won.
Yeah. And then I am the law.
I am the law. Yeah, so heavy hitting political lyrics, and I think they connect. I think there is. It's not like when we listened way back in the day to Wild Thing, and it was those weird political parody tracks.
Yeah. And it was like, so it's RFK doing Wild Thing for some reason.
For
and it was
some
just
reason,
like a
as
comedy
a
thing.
Yeah, it was just bizarre.
Yeah. So,
Still one of the most memorable covers we've ever talked about for it, though. But
yeah. I musically speaking, this is actually closest to the Bobby Fuller 4 version. They don't
Yes.
add some of the extra stuff that the Clash had. It's a pretty straightforward version. The guitar sounds different. It's still very bright, but it doesn't have like the jangle sound.
yeah,
It's kind of like it's like overdriven more so. I would almost say fuzz. I'm not 100% on that though.
yeah, for sure. I would say a bit of that. It's in lines with like your 80s punk. It's really crunchy
Yeah.
and really driving. The rhythm on this is boom, 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 go, like right off the bat.
Yeah, I was looking up the Dead Kennedys because I was like, I know the name, they're a famous
Yeah.
punk band,
You
obviously.
know Holiday in Cambodia.
And I only know Holiday in Cambodia, and I was kind of trying to figure out why. But like looking at their other songs and things they sing about, I can see why that wouldn't make it into like mass market video games.
Yeah.
But I don't know the lyrics to Holiday
Even
in
Holiday
Cambodia.
in Cambodia
Even that,
is surprising to see in there.
Yeah, I guess if you actually listen to the lyrics instead of focusing on just playing the guitar part in Rock Band.
Yeah, hitting the right buttons.
Yeah. But yeah. Do we have anything? I guess we didn't address it musically all that much, but well, maybe
Yeah,
enough.
we
It's
talked
pretty
about,
simple musically. Like, is it fast? Do they speed it up?
It's fast to
Fast.
speed up. He's got a kind of like B-52s-esque vocal style, like punk B-52s.
He does have a bit of that, eh?
Oh, hot sun.
Yeah, some of that, I guess, new wave thing going on.
Yeah, some big, like, everybody gets in on that 6-gun line because it is in some ways the climax of the song, right? It's the
Yeah.
most important part.
Especially like when they do it, they like slow way down and then he shouts the previous line and then everyone just jumps back in on the with a 6-gun.
Yeah, and then we get, it kind of slows down right near the end, kind of a fake out, then it picks back up, and then we get your traditional end.
Oh yeah, do they fake out?
Not a full fake out, but it is like a slowdown that you think is going to go all the way.
Oh, and it doesn't. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's that one. That's a pretty intense version. It's kind of like, I mean, the other comparison, the song Ohio by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young is very much like a directly addressing a particular event, right? This event, the Kent State shootings in particular. So this makes me think of that, because it's very much like you're calling people out by name, you know?
Yeah.
And talking about an event. Anyway.
Yeah, and it's interesting when those songs can be more than just like a one-off thing where they actually hold some ground and you can like some popularity around them.
And yeah, they can
like
somehow survive despite being about a thing that an event a lot of people wouldn't have even heard of otherwise.
Yeah, they can live past their context, so it is interesting in that way. What else is interesting is that Joe Strummer's coming back in 1993, but as a guest for the Pogues.
As a guest / sometimes member, it wasn't totally clear to me.
Yeah, it wasn't clear to me.
The Pogues.
I think this album
Celtic
anyway is avec Joe Strummer. Celtic punk band, fronted by Shane MacGowan, which is a name I thought was familiar, but he really is just a guy from the Pogues.
Oh, you don't know
So
him from
I
the
don't
Nipple
know.
Erectors?
No, I don't.
Yeah, no, I don't. I just saw that name. It's a fun name.
I know. So apparently Pogues Mahone means kiss my arse.
Cool.
Or Pogue Mahone. I'm
'Cause
probably
they're
mispronouncing it. It's Celtic.
English or Anglo-Irish. Yeah,
Yes.
Celtic.
Yes. So they're actually similar to another band we're going to be talking about, and we talked about before, the Bad Shepherds.
Yeah.
Who are like punk rock filtered through tradish instruments.
Yeah, this is also a live version.
Yeah.
And
It is very safe in that.
yeah, it's kind of, I don't think the recording's the best either.
Yeah.
So they changed up the instruments. The riff is mostly on the accordion. It's very much a Clash cover. Because, I mean, Joe Strummer's literally there. What are you going to do? Like, nah, we prefer the Bobby Fuller 4 version, actually. Sorry, Joe. But it's pretty close to that, other than, the accordion playing the riff instead of the guitar. But I did find it somewhat difficult to pick out individual instruments in this recording.
Yeah. It's, I mostly caught, is it an accordion that's kind of doing the main riff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I caught that, and then I knew there was a bass playing. And that's most of what I got.
I think the bass is mostly just playing like the Clash version, and like they do some of the cymbal playing. And they do the same drum roll intro. Accordion takes a solo. See, I was looking at the band, and they play like quite a few, I guess I would say, non-standard instruments, like folk type stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't pick up a whole lot of that. But it's also
there's no uilleann pipes on this, or
kind of mashed,
something of that nature.
But it feels like it wouldn't necessarily get picked up because of the recording for some reason. Yeah. So it's kind of cool, but I didn't love it as a live recording. Maybe it would be cool in person, but I feel like the recording is not the best.
Yeah. I thought the punk rock kind of backing vocals worked. They got a really like a low kind of growly voice that comes in your right channel when they say I thought that was good.
Yeah, with this like folkier stuff. I mean, it's similar to the punk idea, but like I guess punk does the same thing where it just feels like, a bunch of people shouting out in a bar.
Yeah, it's like tavern punk as opposed to pub punk.
Yeah, it's tavern punk. But similar atmosphere and similar atmosphere. Style.
They got a good breakdown section for the crowd to kind of sing back and join in.
True.
So yeah, as a live piece of entertainment, I'm sure it's great, but whether it is recording difficulties or just too simple of a cover, it kind of falls flat here.
Yeah, I didn't love the recording.
But hey, you might love our next performer, Nanci Griffith, in 1997.
Oh.
Breaking rocks in the hot sun. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.
It gets twangy from here on out. Well, that's
We're
not
about
true.
to
It gets
twang
twangy
it the
for this.
fuck up.
Nanci Griffith. I mean, she's a
Also
country
recently
singer, right?
passed.
Yeah, recently passed away.
Yeah. And she's been around like since the Crickets days, so she has toured with them. She's worked with a bunch of
in
fucking
fact, I'm pretty
acts.
sure this recording is with the Crickets. She definitely played this song with the Crickets.
Okay.
This
I believe
might
that.
be the Crickets on this particular recording. But yeah, she's been around for a long time, like real country stuff, you know, like, as soon as you start hearing her sing. But I'm looking at this picture of her from 2004 on Wikipedia, and she's got a Nixon Agnew pin, but also an LBJ pin. I'm like, what is going on there? I don't know. Anyway, she's got some politics, but I feel like they're a little unspecific, which is fine.
That's how I am on the side of you. That's what she's saying.
Yeah, maybe. It's on the side of USA. But you know what this version has?
Twang.
Twang. It has twang.
It's got twang for days,
so
baby.
much. So much. She doesn't even... She's like, there's two voices, right? And they sing at the same time for the whole thing, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's her and some other guys singing. And yeah, they're twangy guitar playing. It twangs, man.
It twangs. There's like fucking woodblock percussion on this at the start. We get to a drum kit later, but it is really just like... dunk,
Yeah, because this one actually has a bit of a build where, like, up until the first chorus, it's like pretty acoustic, like acoustic guitar and two vocalists. But yeah, like you said, like woodblock kind of thing.
Yeah. And I was worried going in because I was like, it's just going to be this acoustic guitar and twang for 3 minutes here, 2.5 minutes. Like, I don't know if we're going to make it, but they do actually change up a lot.
And then they
here.
bust it out. And at that point, they
And,
start to get some other country stuff in there, too. Like, you get the kind of rhythm. I think that's on a guitar.
Yeah, that kind of like old, like it's like rock and roll / country.
Yeah.
Back when they were both sort of the same thing, like kind of boogie rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice changes. And of course, the country genre... even Sonny Curtis said he kind of wrote this originally as a Johnny Cash kind of country song, so it fits pretty comfortably in this context.
Yeah, I guess Johnny Cash had some of that, like, outlaw type stuff.
Yeah.
Folsom Prison, blues, all that.
All that.
The other thing, I mean, like we were saying with the Pogues and how they do the Clash version, because Joe Strummer's there, this one is a cover of the Crickets. More than anything, because it's the only one that sticks with the zip gun line.
That's right, and they really punch that one too.
Yeah. And of course, because that's where the drum fill goes, right?
Yes.
They have the drum fill's quite different, but it still does, a similar thing.
Yeah, it kind of tails it instead of running alongside it.
Especially because they almost like the Dead Kennedys cut down and just hold zip gun, with their
Zip gun.
very country accents. Gun. And then drum, and then as they hold gun, drum fill.
Yeah.
So they're just reminding you, hey, this is the original lyric and we're doing it.
Yeah, this is a Crickets cover. Don't you forget it.
They fake out the ending and then do another B section. Which, I mean, I don't know if we mentioned this, the Clash kind of does an outro where they do an extended section of I Fought the Law and the Law won over and over again.
Yeah, which plays perfectly.
This is also adding an outro, but a different one.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is technically outlaw country, but like it's country and it's kind of an outlaw song. But it also feels very like cartoon western, you know?
Yeah, it feels a bit like...
Because it always has been that a bit.
For sure.
And now it's just, well, cowboys and country music? Is there even a difference? Yeah, so it feels at home in this genre.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Yeah, this was like a good... It was a solid cover all around. I think you got some nice changes between the sections.
And with twang.
The country stuff works. The instrumental section they get to play around a little bit, give us some little country noodling. Come on.
Yeah. So apparently the idea of like a controlled voice crack, like that is what yodeling is. So anytime someone does a controlled voice crack, which kind of happens in this song and a lot of other songs,
for sure.
It's called a yodel.
It's called yodel. Hey.
So it's not like yodel, but like
Hashtag yodel facts.
there's yodeling. That's just an internet thing I picked up. It could be completely made up, but I don't think it is. It sounds reasonable.
I'll take it. Sounds real. Sounds reasonable. And that's why I'm happy you said it. And you're going to be happy that I'm going to say this. The Bad Shepherds, 2009.
I'm breaking rocks in the hot sun. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. I needed money cause I had none. I fought the law and the law won.
Yes, the Bad Shepherds. We've talked about them a couple times.
Yeah, they did, in fact,
on this same album.
Calling.
They did London Calling.
Yeah.
They did Whole Wide World, I think we talked about them for. Oh, man.
Yes, I believe we did.
This is God Save the Queen, but it's probably the... Yeah, it's...
Probably the, yeah.
It's the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
That's a reference to a conversation we had before this episode started recording.
Off mic.
Yeah. But the Bad Shepherds. All right, so we talked about them
as
before.
of recording, the Queen is dead, in case y'all were curious.
Yes. Just that happened in the past of us as well as you.
Well, yeah. As you, me, everyone else. So this one, big sustain on like an organ.
Uilleann Pipes.
Bagpipe.
Uilleann Pipes, my friend.
Pipe.
We've talked about Uilleann Pipes a couple times. They're also called elbow pipes. They're kind of like they're a similar instrument to a bagpipe, but you don't blow into them. You just pump like bellows with your elbow. And the Bad Shepherds are a like folk group. They really play these folk instruments, and you hear a lot of them on this. Uilleann Pipes is one example. The strumming. There's is there a banjo? No, there's a banjo on the next one. They play this cittern or cithern, which is like an old tiny guitar type, mandolin style instrument. A little bigger.
Okay, I wrote mandolin.
Yeah, well, it's a similar idea to a mandolin. It looks like it has doubled up strings. I don't know too much about it, but just looking at the pictures, that's what it looks like to me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 strings? Huh.
That's a lot.
I'm a little unclear on the number of strings on this thing. But yeah, old school. And then, all the like whistles and pipes, things like that you would get. There's a violin on this as well, or you might call it a fiddle.
Yep.
In a folk music context. So that's their sound, is a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it's very like folk, whereas what we got with the Pogues was like punk filtered through folk instruments. This is just folk doing a punk thing. Taking a punk song and making it folk.
Yeah, and they do call themselves folk punk, or have been called folk punk, because they play a lot of punk songs. And punk and folk are related in that, in many ways, like it's a few steps removed, but like rock and roll originally was, not developed for popular music necessarily, right? Like it came out as...
Well, it all comes back to skiffle, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, these genres emerge as an expression of people, right? And then they get turned into a product. But of course, and a lot of the idea behind punk rock was returning to this early rock and roll, which itself was more of a folk style.
Right.
In terms of being just a thing people played because they enjoyed it. And not necessarily
just
something
I guess
made
like
commercially.
the punk thing is we now have the technology to express in different ways, right?
Yeah.
The distortion is a big part of punk rock, I find.
Yeah. So I guess it's about the ethos or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
like-
of connections between folk and punk, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Including
I
this
agree to
group
that.
as the connection
Yeah, these groups
points.
who try to like ride that line.
Yeah, try to play rock and roll punk music as older style
And it's a good
English folk.
instruments on this. I like some of the little folky shit they do. Like the instrumental bridges on this are pretty fun.
Yeah, I always like to
riff on
hear
some pipes and shit.
these somewhat non-standard instruments, right? Like it just kind of sounds cool.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a change. The other thing they do put a lot more focus on is the vocal harmonies. We've talked about harmonies up to now, but these ones feel very deliberate compared to those. Like it feels like there's 3 people all singing apart as opposed to like there's some lyrics and everyone is joining in on them.
Yeah, you got very specific harmonies on this. It's like it's definitely not that punk rock styling of harmonized vocals. It's more traditional.
Yeah. Which also cool sound. So like solid sound conversion. The version overall is a little less exciting just because the ones up to now have been so like rock and roll, go hard.
Yeah.
And this doesn't have that as much just because it's a different style.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was like, this is
And in that sense, yeah, it did kind of like
right? I was playing the wrong song.
not keep my focus the whole time.
Yeah, and there's some moments like it
kinda
feels a little
drifting on
slower. There's
this.
some like droning moments where you're like, and it just kind of fades away a little bit. But I mean, I don't have a negative opinion about this one.
No, it's good. It's a nice in this pool of covers to have something trying a different angle.
Yeah, and I mean fiddle solo, so that's cool.
Yeah. And, we're talking, the narrator is a prisoner, right? So you can have a bit of that wistful angle that this has where you're like, yeah, used to be on the
Yeah.
outside, now I'm on the inside.
And as much as we like associate, to go back to our like folk/punk conversation, as much as we associate like rock and roll and punk rock with rebellion, I mean folk music has always been associated with rebellion because it's the music of the folk, of the people, more so than it
people.
is of the like gentry or upper classes, I guess. And it's just an expression of that. So it's just a different way of
Yeah.
expressing similar things.
Yeah, because it's like the guy in the song isn't like, he's pretty simple in his views. He's like, I fought the law won. He's not like, the establishment is bad and here's some reasons. I'm very mad and I need to express that through music. It's just like him telling his story, right?
Yeah, there are entrenched social systems that all that stuff.
Yeah, and so like the anger isn't necessarily present there, and it doesn't have to be, and so that's I think why this version does still work pretty well.
Yeah.
Is because it's just the telling of a story, basically.
Yeah, it's a frustrated person who did something out of necessity.
Yeah. Yeah, but like a good, interesting little take. We're gonna take on. Speaking of weird genres, we're gonna be talking about
Mento
here with the Jolly Boys in 2010.
Breaking rocks in the action. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. I needed money cause I had none. I fought the law and the
Jolly Boys. So I looked up the Jolly Boys, and they have like a long history.
Yeah, formed in 1945.
And like their Wikipedia page has like sections for decades, so like they've been around.
Yeah, and a stable set of core members. It's not like they
until I think
like death causes you to leave the band.
So several of them have died. I don't know exactly how many members are left, if any. This recording itself was from about 10 or 2010. So, but yeah, they're an interesting group of artists that just had a ton of history and worked together a lot.
Yeah, so they're Jamaican in origins. Mento is Jamaican folk music, basically. That is a big influence for ska and reggae.
Yeah, sort of grew into that. So it was like Mento and Calypso. I think it even predates Calypso and Rocksteady.
I'd believe that simply because I know the names Calypso and Rocksteady, and I haven't heard of Mento until this week.
Yeah, so this is more like folk music, but like a very different style. But also, like, I don't know, this is just a really cool sound.
Yeah.
It's even slower, I think, than any of the other versions. Definitely the longest one, but like got some really cool
Definitely
sounds.
the longest.
You get some similar, like, it doesn't really have like a skank, but you get kind of a snare. I think it's even an electric snare on like the backbeat, which almost serves a similar purpose.
Yeah.
Instrumentally, they also have something that I didn't know much about. The bass is played on a Roomba box.
Okay.
Which is like, you know what it's a bass kalimba, basically.
Okay.
So like it's like metal bars you pluck, but it's over like a big, like it's on a box with a big hole in it to amplify it. And that's where the bass comes. So that's why the bass sounds kind of cool. And
right, okay,
different.
I'm looking at it now. I see it. Yeah.
See, it's like, I mean, yeah, that's what
nuts.
that's called. It's little like metal strips that are tuned and you pluck them.
Yeah. So yeah, it is really like, I mean, it feels like Jamaican folk, I guess, in that regards, or things I might associate with that.
Yeah, you can see the lineage of like, yeah, okay, this feels a bit like those other genres that I'm more familiar with, but I can see how it's different.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a little more like acoustic guitar and stuff in this one. There's a banjo in this too. And this particular version also, I think, has a saxophone. Yeah.
Was that the one hitting that like space in the
yeah, that's like their horn
riff
section. I think it's just saxophone. I think, but it's definitely brassy. I saw a live recording of this. There was no saxophone, but there were no horns at all. So.
Okay, interesting. I feel like that horn does a lot for it for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The other thing I'll say about the rhythm is the acoustic guitar kind of strums it, plays that ba-da-da, ba-da-da, ba-da-da. I looked up Mento on Wikipedia, and there's a Mento rhythm there. So comparing Mento rhythm to that, they're like very, very similar, but it's like shifted back in the song. So it's like a Mento rhythm that's been adapted a little bit to the song, I think.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they hit that solo with the banjo.
Yes, banjo solo, and then a sax solo.
Banjo solo. Yeah.
And there's a brief spoken word section, or at least like kind of ad-libbing, where he says,
like some
so
like
what?
hype
Guess
man
my race
stuff.
is run? And then I didn't understand the next thing he said. Completely unintelligible.
He's got this real croaky voice because he's probably like 70 at least at this point, or like 80.
Yeah, these are guys who've been in the game for a long time.
Yeah, they're old boys at this. Yeah, it's got a real like very relaxed energy to it as he tells you the story of him being in jail now.
Yeah, but like he's got that, like his voice is kind of gruff, and you believe it.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, this he's done hard time for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, a real interesting sound.
And it had, like, the thing I think is kind of missing for me from the Bad Shepherds is, I mean, they have drums, but it's the bass range, low drums.
Right.
And this
something a little driving.
This has some rhythm to drive it, or at least it can be, for what I'm used to. That's kind of what it doesn't.
Yeah, it can carry it.
But this one, even though it's even slower, has the rhythm to drive it, and I think it works better because of that.
Fucking A. Yeah. An interesting one to end on. That brings us to our final verdicts. We got 3 categories today. The worst version, the best version, and the version most likely to win against the law. Who's the toughest? Who can overcome the law? That's the question we ask here today. Alex, what's the worst version of this?
Worst version. I did not really like the Pogues version that much.
That's fair.
And maybe it's just because of the recording, but it fell kind of flat for me. But I do like to hear accordion on things, so there's probably a decent version in there somewhere, but it's not this one.
Not this recording. You might be right there, because if it's not that, it's probably like the Crickets, honestly. Everybody else here actually has like a solid enough take that, yeah, I think I'm going to give it to the Pogues with Joe Strummer.
The thing about this one is like there's so many versions to pick from. So it was like, we've done it before where like we'll get to a version like The Clash, which should be monolithic, and everything after that should just be trying to be The Clash. And that is not what happened today. Like, as much as
not at all. It
the
takes
future versions
a weird
are
turn.
more or less Clash covers, not counting Nanci Griffith, it doesn't feel like some other ones.
Where it is like they follow it to a T.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, even like The Dead Kennedys actually sounds more like a Bobby Fuller cover with changed lyrics.
Yeah, with very different lyrics.
Yeah, this one's got a weird splintering. But, yeah, that's your worst version, Alex. What's your best version?
Best version? Oh, man. There's some really solid versions of this song. I mean, it's hard. It's one of the, like, it's hard not to give it to The Clash, right?
Yeah.
Like, their version was so important in this. Man. Yeah, I got to give it to The Clash. Ultimately, as much as there are some very, very strong versions, I think it's got to be The Clash.
Hell yeah. Right choice, Alex. I'm going to flip it a little just because The Clash is... I mean, I think The Clash deserves to be called the best.
Yeah.
But if you don't want that to be the best, I'm going to offer up The Dead Kennedys.
Yeah.
Who offer a lot of the same, but also rework a song to have a little bit of bite to it, to have a little sting and say, hey, fuck you, Dan White.
White's his last name, definitely.
Yeah, Dan White. And I think that's punk rock, and I think this song has, like we've talked about, it's got folk roots, which is also in some ways punk rock roots. So it's a real good, like more work put in interpretation. It still comes off with a good result. So that's my best this week, Alex.
Yeah, and adding
who's got the law?
Oh man, I mean, obviously the Dead Kennedys version is the one where they do win in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably it, man. Like. They got it. They're the villains in their story, and they win against the law.
And they win.
They're no folk
they are
heroes.
the true winners in that sense. I would say, looking at these guys, Bobby Fuller was murdered by cops. Let's see here, the Bad Shepherds. I don't know about these guys. The Jolly Boys are men of color, I'm assuming, so they're probably not going to have a good time with law enforcement. It's got to be. I'm thinking Nanci Griffith. You know what?
She can take him.
She's dead. They can't catch her now. Yeah. 2, she's a country girl. They love country girls. They got a soft spot, so she can she can overcome them. I think she can fight the law and win.
It's Nanci Griffith. Okay.
It's Nanci Griffith.
All right.
I know.
She can ride away on her horse or whatever.
Yeah, riding on a horse. You can whip your Porsche. Think about that.
Ha.
That does it for our final verdicts. You got different opinions, similar opinion. Want to talk about a version we didn't talk about? Hit us up on Twitter. #CoverMePod, @JakeTheCressy, @SomeAlexWiseGuy. Send us your comments, questions, concerns, suggestions for future episodes. You can also email those to us at covermepod@gmail.com. Be sure to rate and review us. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, your favorite podcasting app. I think I heard that Spotify does actually take reviews for podcasts. So if you're Spotifying this, chuck us some nice words and a little 5-star on there. We got to beat out Hideo Kojima and his new podcast. Come on, people. We're fighting out here. We're drowning. All these celebrities making podcasts. Help us out. You are the marketing budget, of course, so tell your friends as well, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell your most hated enemies. That tells us people you meet. Getting a coffee, tell the barista. I don't care. Tell them. Burn it on a CD and give them an episode. That's what we should encourage. A little CD and cassette exchange at Cover Me. That's the money. All right.
Imagine that. Just like those books.
love that
those,
so
like,
much.
Cassette tape books or CD books, just full of like burned
Yeah, those like
podcast
CD books. You
episodes.
go into somebody's car and they're like, which podcast episode do you want to listen to?
Got a lot of I don't know. The Dollop. That's just one I've heard a lot of people reference.
The Dollop.
Haven't even listened to
Yeah.
it.
A lot of WTF with Mark Maron in here. In fact, this book here is all WTF. This one's all Joe Rogan. Let's just throw a little cover me in your CD books of podcasts.
Yeah.
But that does it for today's episode, everyone. As we always say on Cover Me, I need Cover Me because I have none.